Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back Against the Ropes podcast. Gio Garcia here. I'm alongside Christian Mosqueda. And we have a couple friends here joining us, man, for the 2021 end of the year awards, man. We have our guy, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald from Just Boxing Foundation, man. You guys have seen him before, man. Round of applause for Sean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Sean.
Thank you.
Man, you know, we had to get our good friends on here, man. Listen to different opinions and all that. And of course, we have our other friend, Mr. Clyde from Comix Vet, always with strong opinions, always coming in hot on that live chat, man. So we're happy to have you, Clyde. Thank you for joining us.
Let's go.
All right. I'm bringing the heat today.
Let's bring the heat. Let's bring the heat. Say what's up, Chris. Say what's up to the people.
What's up, guys? What's up? Thanks for joining us on our final episode of the year. We're going to get this award show going. And like Gio said, different opinions. Just going to get it started, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, man. And thank you guys for tuning in live. Jesus is in the building. Someone asking, we have TikTok? No, we don't have one. But Chris might make one. He's into that stuff. Maybe someday. But for now, let's go ahead and get started, man. 2021, very good year for boxing, in my opinion. And we'll ask you guys in the live chat, and obviously you guys too on the panel, you know, how you grade this year. But let's go ahead and get started with these awards, man. Of course, we're going to get into our fighter of the year, our knockout of the year, trainer of the year, prospect of the year, and all that good stuff. And I think prospect is a good one to start off with. This is a tough one. We were mentioning before the podcast started, I don't think there's a clear-cut winner for prospect of the year. So I don't know who wants to begin with this one. This one's a bit of a tough one.
Yeah, I'll let some of the I'll let either Sean or Comix then take you guys as a prospect. So one of you guys want to start, and then we'll
I'll start it off.
Go for
I'll
it.
start it off with me saying that I think Sergio Ortiz is my prospect of the year. That's why I got anybody serious. I'm going to go with Sergio Ortiz. Yeah. Was it 18, 20 and 0 or something? And knocked down everybody. Stopped everybody.
Yeah, like 100%. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Virgil's always going to be up there. Again, he's just trailblazing through that freaking division. He's yet to step up against the names of that division, but you almost feel like he's not too far off and he can give any guy trouble. All right, Sean, who you got, Sean, for most exciting prospect / show?
Let me explain my criteria because Virgil Ortiz is a great name. I didn't pick someone the caliber of a Virgil Ortiz because I think he's moved up too far in his career to be considered a prospect at this point. He's ranked number 1 by the WBC. In fact, when I'm thinking of prospect, I kind of took anyone who's ranked in the top 10 out of consideration. So if you guys are like, hey, what's up with Virgil Ortiz or Sebastian Fondura or like, you know, all these different guys, you know, Tim Zhu, all those cats, they're all in the top 10 at this point. And I think that, you know, they're really in a position to start competing for belts and against other guys in the top 10 who are all named fighters. And so I think one of the hardest things about prospect is like, where do you draw the line? Who's a prospect and who's no longer a prospect? And if you say, well, a prospect is anybody that's not a champion, then okay, yeah, I can see why you pick someone like Virgil Ortiz. I kind of went further down the line than that. The other thing is like, when you're talking about a prospect, it's hard to differentiate between, do you just mean like who had the best 2021? Or do you mean who has the most potential as a fighter in in the future? So I kind of try to find someone in the middle, someone who has a lot of potential, but also had a really good year, right? And so when I looked at that, the two names that kind of stuck out were Montana Love and Jared Anderson, right? So these are both guys who are not ranked in the top 10. I think Jared Anderson's like not even in the top 25 rankings right now. And Montana Love is outside the top 15, I think, for most of them. Both those guys fought 4 times against pretty good opposition, in fact. Like, Montana Love, Branchek, and, he had another opponent who was really highly ranked, opponents with good, solid winning records. Montana Love stopped 3 of his 4 opponents. Jared Anderson stopped all 4. So I think looking at those guys, that's where it landed. Now, there are other people that I'm sure going to pop up in the chat. Cats like, Edgar Berlanga and just younger guys, you know what I mean? Mark Castro. Those guys, of course, they're very good, but I think that they're like in a position to be in that same conversation next year, because they're still early on, and the opposition that they're facing isn't really the same height or level as people like Montana Love and Jared Anderson. So I think that I'm going because of the year that they had, the opposition that they faced, the fact that they're not highly ranked yet. I'm kind of a toss up between those 2 names.
Now, for me to piggyback off you actually said the 2 names that most kind of like rose out to me, in my opinion. You said Montana Love. He's a guy that hasn't had too many fights. 17 fights. I mean, but not many high caliber fights. And if you see the man he's beaten, Ivor Baranchik that's been in there with Chon Cepeda, he's been there, title holder. Fought for the title again, lost, but this guy Montana Love, seemingly with not too much, I guess experience, just took him out. He's a 4.5-star, fighter. That's something that's highly rated, but you still don't hear about him as much. So for him, he was probably one of the most fighters that came to the forefront this year. He is 26 years old. I guess we can, debate whether he's still considered a prospect, but just the fact that he's just put like in front of us this year. It made some statement wins that he makes me, want to keep an eye on him in the following years to see where he takes his talents. I would have put Jared Anderson though. Jared Anderson, not because, the heavyweight division, and we've already seen what happened with, Deontay Wilder being, destroyed in those 3 fights. So now like the heavyweight division is clamoring for another name. And I think Jared Anderson has that persona. He's very entertaining inside the ring. His ring entrances have made me want to keep an eye on this guy. So I think for me, Jared Anderson is the prospect of the year for me for 2020.
So you're changing your answer.
Gio.
So you're changing your answer. All right. No, for my picks, I see some of you guys in the comments saying Xander Zayas. I think that was one of the names that was thrown out there. He threw his name out there himself. I don't think he should be prospect of the year. He did have a lot of fights this year, 6-0, 4 KOs. Still 19 years old, very young. Honestly, up to about 2 hours ago, I wanted to say a guy like Diego Pacheco. Diego Pacheco, he fought 3 times this year, 2-0. He fought on big cards. He fought on the Canelo Yildirim undercard. He fought on the Mikey Garcia undercard. He was sparring all the best guys at 168. But I kind of changed it up last minute, and I'm surprised that a lot of people didn't mention Jared Anderson. I think he had very good wins this year. He improved to 11-0, 11 KOs. He's 22 years old. 4-0, 4 KOs this year. And he faced decent opposition, at least compared to a guy like Zayas. Jared Anderson, his opponent's records, I'm going to just go ahead and read them. He faced a guy 5-1, 16-2, 22-0, and 17-1. And in a very hot division right now, in a very dangerous division, I think he's my pick. He fought decent opposition, and he looked impressive in all his fights this year. So that would be my pick, and I'm kind of surprised that more people didn't mention him. At least I haven't seen many people mention him.
Yeah. Somebody else I would have mentioned as a prospect that kind of impressed me this year was Isaac Cruz, but in him taking the fight with Tank Davis, he kind of, throws his hat in there for contender now. But let's say if he hadn't had like a fight of that caliber, he would still be, in my opinion, been considered a prospect young fighter. I believe he's like 22. So he would have been one of those guys I would have probably given, the prospect of the year. But for me, Isaac Cruz kind of crosses over to contender status after that Tank fight. It's a fight that I was like, he's too young to be taking this kind of risk. But I mean, he gave a good account of himself. he's another name that I'm very excited for in the next coming years. And he's still very young. He's, already, knocking on these title holders, trying to get these titles. And I know he's getting called out by Ryan, by Cambosos, by all these other lightweights. But yeah, for me, I'll stick with Jared Anderson just because of what you just mentioned, Gio. Picking up great wins and a young guy, good personality. He's gonna mix it up for the heavyweights, and it's gonna be an exciting time.
Yeah, this guy, I don't know why he keeps mentioning Cruz, man.
For these
I'm gonna
names
just stop you right there. Just stop it. I'm gonna agree with Big Bro and just cut you right there. But I want to go to some comments. Jake Paul, hey man, no Jake Paul, no love for Jake Paul.
I don't know, man. He's exciting. I mean, he's bringing eyes to the sport, but I think there's a lot of people that are divided whether we want to consider him, I guess, in the, full on boxer. I mean, especially when he's not fighting actual boxers. But I mean, he's bringing excitement. He's bringing excitement. People are gonna find a way to catch him or not, whether they're gonna pay for that pay-per-view. But he's exciting.
Let's get Clyde and Sean's opinion on Jake Paul. Should he be considered at all
For prospect?
or for any award this year?
You could make a case that was a devastating and brutal KO on a pretty big stage. So like, again, it depends on what your criteria is for knockout of the year, but definitely not for something like any of these other awards.
No fighter of the year? No?
Yeah, knockout of the year, definitely. But I mean, the good thing is he has brought a lot more mainstream eyes to the sport. Some bad, but I think a lot of good. And I think it's only going to benefit boxing going forward, especially the way he's putting all these MMA guys to sleep. That's always entertaining to watch.
Okay, so let's just kind of go over the picks again. My pick was Jared Anderson. Chris was flip-flopping. I don't know who he picked. Sean, are you going with Jared as well?
Yeah, I picked Jared Anderson. Yeah.
Okay. And some people in the comments here saying they no longer consider Vergil Ortiz a prospect, even though I agree with Sean. It's kind of I don't even know, because on paper he is a prospect, right? He's not, or a contender. He's not a champion yet, so I don't know where the cutoff is necessarily for a prospect.
Plus, he's got less than 20 fights, same as I think Montana Love has around the same amount of fights. He's younger than Montana Love.
Right.
He's just, he's
yeah, and again, like I said, it was strictly based on rankings. Those guys are just ranked so high that they're in a different position, I think, than a Jared Anderson or a Montana Love right now. Vergil Ortiz is literally ranked number one, I think, by most organizations. So
I like that you mentioned Fundora, though. I don't know if you were eliminating him from the list or if you were adding him to the list.
I eliminated him because he's ranked too high. Like the same thing with like a guy like Tim Tszyu had a great year, right? Yeah. Connor Ben, like these guys they're guys who are out here doing good things in boxing, but they're just ranked too high. Like I think Sebastian Fundora is ranked in the top 5 at 154. Tim Tszyu is ranked probably slightly above Sebastian Fundora. Connor Ben is obviously ranked in the top 10. So like, once you get into that sort of upper echelon of fighters, I kind of eliminated you from the idea of being a prospect. So it's not that like a lot of those guys I named have more upside potentially than someone like Jared Anderson. It's yet to be determined, but you kind of have to draw the line somewhere. So I kind of went with, we're talking outside top 10 rankings.
Yeah, and I think what also made it so difficult was we're still in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of guys had fights canceled, postponed. A lot of younger guys, like I'll use Raymond Murataya as an example. He had a few fights postponed and canceled and moved around. So I feel like a lot of the younger guys didn't necessarily have that opportunity to be as active as, before the pandemic. I'm pretty sure that had something to do with it. But this was a tough one to decide. Have you decided, Chris? I know you're flip-flopping.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jared Anderson. I think he's had the most successful, I would say, year, winning all fighters against actual boxers. I'm saying if Jakey Paul had fought some boxers, he could have been, it could have had a case for it. But it's gonna be all Jared Anderson for me.
Yeah, and I'm not mad at that. I loved his outfit, his last fight. I think he's doing good things for the sport of boxing, getting KOs. bring attention to the sport. So I ain't mad at that. Would you guys like to move on, or do we have anything else to add on that topic?
I say let's move on. I think we it's Jared. Let's go.
All right, let's move on to let's go with one of the more popular ones, man. One of the more popular ones, knockout of the year. 2021 had a lot of huge knockouts, man. Ryan Garcia had a big one in January. Oscar Valdez had a huge one in February, and I think that momentum carried on to even this month we saw some big knockouts. So I don't know who wants to take this one away, man. This one, I know I struggled a little bit with it, but I kind of have an idea of which one we're gonna go with.
Yeah, I'll start with mine. I'll start with one, and I'm going to say one that's not very. I mean, I think it was a big knockout, but it wasn't really remembered. I'm going to go with Callum Smith, his knockout over Lennox Castillo. This is when Callum Smith went up another division, and I didn't, honestly, I wasn't too impressed with him when he went up against Canelo. But then again, it is Canelo, but he came back with a big knockout over Lennox Castillo. And so to me, that's the knockout of the year for me. It was just fucking brutal. Straight right, it was just flattened him out. That will be for me. Callum Smith over Lennox Castillo.
Clyde.
All right, I gotta say I got like three that I have in mind. My top three are Valdez over Berchelt, Jake Paul over the MMA guy.
Let's go, baby.
And I think the top one has to be Fury over Wilder, just because how much eyes were on it, what it meant to the heavyweight division. Kind of I think that should be it for Wilder now. That kind of was the nail in his coffin. So I think that was, to me, the knockout of the year, Fury over Wilder.
So we got Callum Smith. We got Tyson Fury. Sean?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I kind of fall in between Christian and Clyde because, like, from a criteria standpoint, right, I'm definitely thinking of the violence and the brutality of the knockout, but also the stage that it's on, the importance of it, and mainly also who it's against, right? So all those things kind of matter because, like, you guys know, we watch a lot of club shows. You guys call the club shows. There are some absolutely brutal, devastating knockouts that are, better than a lot of the ones that you see on TV sometimes, but the competition is also mismatched. They're not fighting opponents who are as good, and it's just less important. So I think when I consider those two things, when I consider sort of the violence, the brutality of the knockout, along with the stage it was on, the importance and the expectation and the opponent, I have to go Oscar Valdez knockout over Berchelt, because I think that was unexpected for a lot of people. I think his opponent was considered the favorite going into the fight. It was a championship fight, and it was devastating. It's brutal. So I'm going Oscar Valdez.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with that one, Sean. Oscar Valdez. I was going back and forth with Clyde's pick, Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder. I think that would have been my personal pick. I was very happy to see Wilder go down and out finally. He kept coming back, came back for the trilogy, got pummeled again, got beat badly and got knocked out. But I would have to say that, a lot of people did expect Fury to stop Wilder or at least beat him easily. Obviously, regardless of Wilder's punching power, I think Fury demonstrated that he's a better boxer throughout the three fights. I think I'm going with Valdez because big stage, underdog. Many people didn't believe in him, including myself. I thought even Berchelt could stop him, and just the way that it happened. He was fighting, with a high Q in the ring. It wasn't just a brutal back and forth war. He knocked out the one of the biggest punchers in boxing, and Miguel Berchelt, and then the brutality. He becomes a new champion, underdog. I think it was just a great story there, and it's tough not to vote for that one for me. And I see a few people here on the comment section as well saying Valdez. So Yeah, I think it was a tough one for me. We saw a lot of good KOs. You see Kiko Martinez right there on your screen. He had a big upset win against Galahad. Obviously, Jake Paul's was very brutal.
Connor Ben,
Connor Ben was brutal. He slept
Gabe Rosado.
Algeri
Gabe Rosado
Rosado. You
was
can't
brutal,
forget
yeah.
about
Gabe
that one
Rosado was
against
brutal.
Melikuziev.
F.A. Ajagba. F.A. Ajagba had a really monstrous knockout.
Yeah, I think I mentioned Brian Garcia to start the year. That was a good one against Campbell.
Those
But,
are hard because the body shock knockouts.
Yeah, and those are my favorite.
I think most of the time those ones won't get knockout of the year.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and those are my favorite. I tend to be biased for those, but I just couldn't not vote for Valdez for the reasons that I mentioned. And yeah, that's my pick, man. That's my pick.
Plus, that would be able to win like a upset of the year also. So that I feel like that would get like 2 categories.
Definitely.
So knockout of the year and upset of the year.
Someone's mentioning Cepeda as well. Cepeda had
Yeah.
a huge first round KO, and that was a huge moment as well.
Oh,
He
yeah,
was
yeah.
seen as the underdog by the betting odds. So that one was huge too. There was just so many good ones. We could probably discuss this for the rest of the night, but I just couldn't. Like I said, I couldn't not vote for Valdez.
Yeah, to me, like the Cepeda knockout, that one probably made some of the biggest rounds, you know, just based on all the shit talking that was done, and then the brutality of how he got, you know, how he knocked out his opponent. Again, respect to the Valdez, because the Valdez fight, we even wondered, like, was this last year or the beginning of this year? It was the beginning of this year, but just the fact that we're still talking about it now, just speaks volumes to how big that knockout was. The enormity of that event, you know, 2 title holders with history, with, you know, with both narratives to prove. I almost felt like Berchelt was gonna find a way to get this win, because he, you know, we heard about their history and how it was Berchelt's time to finally have the spotlight, you know, after being avoided for so long. But you know, Oscar Valdez with that huge knockout, we're still talking about it now, 9 months later. So, you know, rightfully and deservedly, if it's won tonight.
Yeah, and I think on the poll, let me go ahead and check this. I did a poll on our channel. I think the majority of the people voted for Valdez 2021 knockout of the year. There were 4 options, and then other. The lowest percentage was Canelo against Caleb Plant. Obviously, I think the moment was probably bigger than the knockout itself, but that was a big one, 15%. Jake Paul versus Woodley received 17% of the votes. Tyson Fury, close with Valdez. Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder received 27%, and 32% of the voters were going with Valdez against Berchelt. So, yeah, it was a tough one to decide, but the voters agree with Sean and myself too. So, yeah, that's never a category that's going to disappoint. There's always going to be many different criteria to consider, and many huge knockouts. So, yep, KO of the year.
Let's go Valdez with the win. Let's go.
Yeah, and I think this is a good segue into the next award, Trainer of the Year. I think this is probably at least for me, one of the clearest years for this pick. I mean, we mentioned Valdez, we mentioned Ryan, we mentioned Canelo, and they're all under one guy, right? They're under one man, and that's Eddie Reynoso. And I'm gonna just say it, that's my pick. I didn't consider anybody else really. I tried my best, but if you look at Reynoso's year with Ryan, with the KO of Campbell, with the Oscar Valdez upset, Canelo becoming undisputed, other guys like Frank Sanchez and Andy Ruiz also obtaining some victories. I think this was a no-brainer for me.
All right, Sean or Clyde, you guys want to take the next bit?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just say I think this might be unanimous. I think Reynoso was undefeated, right, with his fighters this year. So yeah, I think this is I think it'll be pretty unanimous with this. So I'm going with Reynoso.
Let us know what you guys think in
Sean?
the chat.
I was going to pick Ben Davidson.
Mm.
No, I'm just
Okay.
messing with you guys. No,
No, I
I'm
wanted
just
to
kidding.
hear
No,
the-
it definitely. I think Eddie Reynoso pretty close to a landslide. I mean, you do have to, and I do think that's no disrespect to Ben Davidson. I do think he did good work with his fighters this year, but I just think you can't compete with the year that Eddie Reynoso stable had. Between Oscar Valdez, Canelo, Ryan, Frank Sanchez, even with big wins over like Ajagba and them. So, yeah, definitely Reynoso.
landslide.
Yeah, for me, like, go Gio.
Oh, I was just saying landslide, but let's see if you have anybody else.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
for me, I guess.
Who's Bud Crawford's trainer, Chris? Or you
Omac.
Somebody
For me,
said
yeah.
Jake Paul's
Omac.
trainer. Jake
I'll
Paul's,
agree
no?
with you guys. I think Eddie Reynoso runs away with this one, but I want to just do an honorable mention because obviously it's kind of like an award for second place this year, but I'm going to give an honorable mention to Anatoly Lomachenko because this, obviously, a lot of people discounted and discredited Lomachenko, but I think he had a big year. I think his dad had a big part to do with that. Obviously, we know Lomachenko, and especially Anatoly, they don't give too many interviews, obviously, because of the language barrier, but I think Anatoly, even though a lot of people were discounting Lomachenko or like, oh, he still has the talent, but the media is not, the media can be very rough when we lose a big match, and he lost a match to Teofimo. They discount him the way they did with Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. Like, you could get discounted off the pound for pound list. You could be forgotten if you don't give too many interviews. And I think Anatoly kind of used this year to bring Lomachenko back, whether mentally, condition-wise, and I don't think he gets enough props for what he does behind the scenes. So I'll give him the honorable mention, but the second place. But of course, it's all Eddie right now. So just too much of a stable. Everybody wants to be there. You see even Anthony Joshua making trips to see if he can make something happen. But all roads lead to the Eddie Reynoso and the Canelo team. He's had a phenomenal year, and he might have this award locked in if they continue the way they're doing it. So Eddie Reynoso for sure.
Is Loma's dad still training Usyk, or am I tripping?
I believe so. Yeah. I believe they're still training. So he had a big year too there. So yeah.
No Theo Senior? Nobody? Theo Senior? Someone asking here in the comments.
He got last year from me. He can't get it twice, man. Especially after this last outing. Come on.
So Eddie Reynoso, trainer of the year.
Eddie Reynoso.
That was an easy one to decide. And before we move on to the next one will be fight of the year. All right, gentlemen, fight of the year. But before we move on, we've been doing some giveaways this whole month essentially. So I want to go ahead and announce the winners. That's right, winners for the last week's contest. We're feeling nice, man. We're in the giving spirit, so we're gonna name the two winners, and the two winners are I don't know if they're here on the live chat, but if they watch this later, they can get at me. Mad Dog H, congratulations, you have won yourself an AtR boxing T-shirt, and also Jenny Valdo, my brother-in-law. I can deliver that one. He also won a T-shirt. Thank you guys for tuning in last week, for dropping your comments as we asked to be entered in the raffle. And congratulations, Mad Dog. If you're watching this later, I don't see you on the live chat. Send us an email. I'll write it on the live chat, or if you have Instagram, you can also DM us. But I just wanted to congratulate and announce the winners real quick. Mad Dog H and Jenny Valdo.
That's right.
That's right. Thanks, Mike.
Congratulations to Gio for figuring out how mail works too.
I was worried, but I mailed some stuff to our guy Derek. Shout out to him. And it got there. So now I know how it works. All right.
We got spring coming up. I know some of these guys are gonna be looking at those tanks, those AtR tanks.
Yep.
Which reminds me, Joe, you haven't shipped me out my spring tank top, bro. Still waiting on those.
Bro, you got to get in shape first.
It's off season. It's off season. I haven't started camp yet.
Jacob says, so they stay in the family. Hey,
Damn.
all you had to do was participate, and you would have been entered to win. And I might have gave everybody one. Who knows? But
For real.
yeah, we'll try to do giveaways. We'll try to do some more, at least once a month, man. At least once a month. I want to, keep thanking you guys for tuning in. So maybe it's not a T-shirt, maybe it's a hat or a beanie or something. But yeah, we'll come up with stuff, man. We'll come up with stuff. But yeah, we are about 30 minutes in, and we have given, if you're just tuning in, we've given a few of our awards here. Prospect of the Year, I think the majority, or at least Sean and I, agreed on Jared Anderson, right? I think Chris did too. For Trainer of the Year, landslide, Eddie Reynoso, and KO of the Year, I think the majority of us had Oscar Valdez, but that one's still tough, man. That one's still tough, and I'll probably continue to do the polls to see if you guys change your mind or if you guys agree with us or not. But I think we can move on to Fight of the Year. And this is another one where there's always going to be many, many candidates, bigger stages, stages not as big, maybe stakes not as high. But I'm very curious to see what you guys think for Fight of the Year. I think, at least in the mainstream of boxing, there was one particular fight, but I want to get you guys' opinions. I don't know, Sean, I think we can let you take this one away first. What do you have for Fight of 2021?
Well, there were really two main candidates I considered, and I went back to kind of rewatch them to do it. And that was Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder and Chocolatito versus Gallo Estrada. And ultimately, I think I'm landing on Chocolatito as the Fight of the Year. And obviously, it didn't have the same amount of drama that the heavyweight title fight had. But I think that it sort of overperformed Chocolatito in particular in terms of expectation. We got the full fight. It was also somewhat controversial, very closely contested in the sense that, there's a population of people who think one person won, a population of people who think another person won. So there's no definitive outcome. And for me, I think I'm going to stick with Chocolatito and Gallo Estrada. But, of course, Wilder Fury was an amazing fight.
Yeah, definitely. I think Chocolatito against...
Comix Vet.
I think Chocolatito against Estrada is one of those that's going to fly under the radar. It was kind of earlier on in the year, and the lighter divisions don't tend to get as much respect, perhaps, as the bigger divisions. So I think that's definitely one of the ones I had in my notes, but we'll let Clyde take it away.
So I think that Sean doesn't know what he's talking about because it's obviously Darren Williams against Frank. I have to say,
fair enough.
I'm probably gonna
You said
with
Darren Williams?
They're my knockout of the year category contestants. It was, for me, it's between Valdez and Burchell and Fury and Wilder. So those are the two I have. Fury and Wilder a little bit, middle of the year, and Burchell and Valdez was like right at the start of the year. So that one, I went back to watch that one a couple weeks ago. So I thought that was a great fight. I don't think any of them has matched up, in my opinion, to those two.
Chris?
Hey. Yeah, I know. For me, I was stuck between those two. Because those are those fights that we're gonna watch this fight with who, like, gotta make sure we don't work that night because those are the two events and they didn't disappoint. I'm torn because both had action packed, both had knockout finishes. obviously we all know how we feel about Wilder. We're like, this is the fight to fucking end all the excuses, end that trilogy. We're done. We want to move on to bigger and better things. So with that said, I'm gonna have to give my fight of the year to Wilder Fury 3, just because it finally silenced everything. There was no there was already no need for a third one, but this one definitely sealed it. It's over. Huge knockout. They traded knockdowns. It was a sick ass event. For me, that's the fight of the year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and agree with that. Do I agree with that? I think I do, and I think a lot of the chat disagrees. I think I can see why. I can see why because
What they saying?
a lot of people are saying here Gallo against Chocolatito. It was more of a pure boxing match, two technicians, two guys who were more evenly matched perhaps than Wilder against Fury. I understand all that and I agree with all that. I even said I don't think this was the best version of Tyson Fury at all. I don't even think he fought that good of a fight. I think he showed a lot of heart, but
Yeah.
and then it came out after they were saying he had an injured elbow or something like that, which maybe that explained it. But I think that's the reason why this fight was so exciting and intriguing. Both guys knocked each other down. Both guys had to overcome the knockdowns, overcome being hurt. And at the end of the fight, it ended with a brutal KO, spectacular, historic, memorable. And for those reasons, I'm going to go with that one. Probably because maybe it was a little more brutal, more knockdowns. And of course, it ended in a KO. But I can totally understand how, you guys in the chat can disagree with that and vote for Estrada and Chocolatito. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. That one even a bit controversial. I think a lot of people weren't happy with the fact that Chocolatito lost or that Estrada won, however you want to see it. I think in Wilder Fury, there's just no doubt. Fury put an end to that chapter, closed the book, went home and celebrated, and we'll see if we get to see Wilder again in the ring. But it was just brutal, no controversies. There was one clear winner, and that's why I go with that one, man. I go with Fury against Wilder.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and the reason why I went with that one also with also Valdez and Burchell is because I see those fights as ones that you could just get any person off the street, and show them those fights, and they're just going to fall in love with boxing, because that's the kind of fight that boxing fans love, the average sports person loves, or even any random person that maybe isn't into boxing. You show them that fight, and they're going to dig it. They're going to want to watch it, and that's the kind of fight that makes fans.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
agree.
I'm gonna agree with Comix Vet on that. There's certain fights that make you fall in love, and that was one of those fights that kind of just put oxygen into boxing. I feel like with me, every time I see a boxing match, I'm like, I need like oxygen to make me get excited and stay excited and wait for the next event. That Valdez or Chavez was one of those. Every time Virgil Ortiz fights, I get like renowned oxygen. And for me, the Wilder versus Tyson Fury 3, that was, even though it wasn't the highest quality of boxing as like Usyk and Joshua or Burchett, Valdez. That one just had all the makings of that drama. So much drama and so much, you're tuned in every second of that fight because something can happen.
Yeah, and people would think bring legitimate points. Cambosos, Delfimo, they're mentioning that one. Big Bros mentioning Canelo versus Plant. I think that was a pretty good fight too. And of course, we're always going to miss those fights on the undercards that were back and forth wars, right? That we're going to forget about. But Clyde, I think, made a great point. No matter who you are, no matter if you're an avid boxing fan or a quote unquote casual boxing fan, a sports fan, if you're tuning into Sports Center that night, you probably said, "Damn." And you probably went back and watched the highlights on YouTube or watched the full fight on YouTube because it was that type of fight. But yeah, I mean, like I started off the show saying, 2021 I think has been a very good year for boxing, and you see it in these debates. It's tough to to come up with a concrete answer for fight of the year, knockout of the year, because there were so many good ones. So,
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be mad at that.
Okay.
All right, so I think we're going with Fury, right? Fury. The majority of us saying Fury
Yeah.
for fight of the
Yeah.
year. Let's move on, and this is the last major one, at least. And I think this is a wash too. We mentioned Eddie Reynoso, trainer of the year. I think for fighter of the year, to me, it was difficult to consider anybody else. We did see, a few undisputed champions this year,
Mhm.
and I think obviously Canelo has the strongest case. He beat the best opposition this year, in my opinion, out of the other undisputed champions. And some people won't even consider Cambosos undisputed, right? But that's another debate. I just think Canelo, started off the year with Yildirim mandatory. We knew that was going to be what it was. And then he went ahead and stopped the other two remaining champions at 168. Faced Callum Smith December of 2020, so that one technically doesn't count for this calendar year. But I think he had a tremendous run, and that's my pick for fighter of 2021.
Hey. All right, Sean, Comix Vet, you guys want to take the next one?
Go ahead, Sean.
Sure, yeah. I think for fighter for me, I agree. It's Canelo. Ultimately, he didn't just. It's not that he gained undisputed. He won 2 of those titles in this calendar year. Both of those titles were against undefeated world champions. One of them was an undefeated multi-division world champion, and he did it in Canelo fashion, right? So they were both, big stoppage wins. So I think that when you look at what he was able to accomplish, even though there are a lot of great fights this year, I think if you're just lining up accolades and opponents, what Canelo accomplished within this year is difficult to challenge.
Clyde?
Gotta agree. It's got to be Canelo, and I mean he's doing it in such a devastating fashion, just beating up on these guys that are bigger. A lot of people don't, forget that these guys that he's fighting are bigger than him, and now he's going up to cruiser to fight. So it depends on how he does there. If he's going to end up winning fighter of the year next year as well, but it's got to be Canelo. Maybe honorable mention to, since it is going to be Canelo, I can only think of who would be the next person after him. Maybe Usyk.
Yeah.
Having that big fight.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question after Chris gave his pick. Who would we consider for second? Since for us at least it's clear that it's Canelo. But Chris, we'll let you give your pick first. Maybe you have somebody else. Maybe Jake Paul. I don't know. Who's your fighter of the year, and who would you consider second?
Now, for me, like you mentioned, it's just like I mentioned previous, it's an award for second place. Canelo, clear runaway. Everything you guys just mentioned, just clear favorite. To me, Alexander Usyk, as I just mentioned, I think he had a huge year. Just last year, we were mentioning how he had not much of a, he was struggling with the heavyweight division. Is it a mistake going up and challenging Joshua so soon? Is it a mistake, him being 6'3", jumping into that division? I think he's chewing more than what he can handle, and he proved us wrong, and he proved us wrong in amazing fashion, taking out Anthony Joshua, almost knocking him out, taking all those titles, and just showing us that, fucking size doesn't make much of a difference. It's all about that skill. It's all that skill set. And to me, if he had 2 more fights, he would have run away, in my opinion, with fighter of the year, because he did something harder than Canelo. He took on a bigger, seemingly, tougher opponent. Canelo was always going to beat those guys. He was always going to beat Caleb Plant. He was always going to beat Billy Joe. There was a big question mark when it came to Alexander Usyk going into the heavyweight division, and he kind of passed it with flying colors. I was tuned in every second of that fight with Joshua. Again, it was only one fight in 2021, so not enough for me to give him fight of the year, but close second. And again, it's all Canelo. All Canelo, undisputed, doing stuff that no other fighter has, dared to do in the last 10, 15 years. So it's freaking hard to not pick Canelo. I
GOAT.
cannot.
That's right, the GOAT.
Yeah, I think other guys to consider maybe Josh Taylor. He won all the
Mhm.
championships
Right.
at 40. Some people may say Cambosos. To me, more of a revelation of the year, more so than fighter of the year. But he had a huge win as the underdog, and obviously Usyk. But yeah, I think it's undisputed that it's Canelo.
Hey, undisputed. Good one. Let's go.
Do we have anything else to add on that award for fighter of the year? Was this an easy one too to decide?
I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, nobody else had a resume that, well, I think his combined opponents for Canelo were like 77,
Yeah.
but it was something like that. So nobody else could say that, beating champions with those records.
Nobody's trying to unify like he is. So it's, he is the face of boxing. He's the cash cow, but nobody's doing what he's doing nowadays. So get Canelo in that category. Right? Let's go, Joe.
What's up? Sorry, I was getting water. And I grabbed my little Canelo thingy. Y'all see, I got Canelo here with me. I don't even know how we got these. One side has Triple G, one side has Canelo. But anyway.
Got the chump and the champ. Gotcha.
Damn. Here come the hot takes by Clyde. All right, and besides, the major awards, obviously, we can discuss other awards or other big moments in 2021 because, like I mentioned, we had a few guys who fought for all the belts. We had a lot of champions fighting champions. We had some guys retiring. We had upsets. I feel like a lot of major events going on in 2021, and I'll just go ahead and begin with Manny Pacquiao retiring, right? We saw Manny Pacquiao retire in 2021.
Yeah.
Any comments on that? Is that how you guys would have wanted to see Pacquiao walk away from the game? Did he walk away too late? Did he walk away at the right time?
I'll let Sean take this one.
I wouldn't say too late in the sense that, Manny has his faculties and he's walking away and he has a career, obviously beyond boxing. Obviously, it's also not, he was pretty badly beat up in that last fight. I also think in a Keith Thurman fight, even though he came away in victory, you could see just in the post-fight press conference and things like that, he was pretty badly beat up in those last two fights. And so I think for Manny to continue to compete at the highest level, he was probably past that point in his career, although he would still give so many names, the hardest day of their career, undoubtedly. I think we're fortunate. We're fortunate to have gotten to witness Manny Pacquiao throughout his prime and beyond that over the last, 20 years that he's been kind of actively competing and winning titles and doing things like that. I can't say that I've ever seen a boring Manny Pacquiao fight. If he thinks it's time, then it's time. Manny's kind of earned the right to just do whatever he wants in the sport. So
did we see that coming? 2021 as the year that Pacquiao would retire?
But
in a loss, right? You must, right? Like when he loses the way that he did, it's not entirely unexpected. I think the question would have been, had he won that fight, do you see the retirement coming? But in a loss, I would imagine that most of us thought that was a possibility, considering he was going into government and, or wanted to continue to pursue government and things like that.
Yeah, so I always think it's tough looking at athletes, especially boxers who you've watched growing up and you sort of grow up with them and watch their whole careers, and all of a sudden they retire. It makes you kind of feel old, doesn't it? Um, and I think, like Sean said, he should have retired after the Thurman fight because I think he still had enough in there to where he didn't look too bad. I think he won comfortably, obviously, but to go out like that, just it's kind of sad. But he is going into politics now, and he has a second life after boxing, which is good. And he still has, like Sean said, his faculties. He's not, messed up with like brain damage and stuff that a lot of guys have to deal with. So I don't know. I see his whole career now as somebody who I kind of really hated in the beginning. He got the whole Mexicutionary nickname.
Yeah.
And then because he would be all my favorite fighters, and I really hated him. But then he just became somebody you kind of grew to respect. Yeah. And now that he has all my respect, and now he's retiring, it's good. I just didn't want him. I didn't want him to see him keep getting beat up, and I feel like if he would have got really, really hurt if he kept fighting. If he comes up and because what is it, like the rumors of him having like tax issues and he needs money, so therefore he's still fighting, but I don't know how much truth there is to that. Yeah. But he definitely shouldn't be fighting anymore. So
hey, I'm just glad Crawford didn't get that W against Pacquiao because he would have ran with that. He would have been celebrating more than Ugas.
Isn't it kind of good that he didn't end up finding Spence? Because I feel like Spence would have just destroyed him even worse.
Yeah, then Ugas.
Definitely.
Yeah, no. For me, like I think I share same sentiments. I think Manny has been one of those guys that has just fought longer than what he needs to. He's giving us more fights than he spoiled us fans. He didn't have to have a third, window of fighting, and yet he still did it. Obviously, like Clyde mentioned, you grow up with these fighters. You see them, you start hating them, but then you start to turn. You start to become fans. You get to know their personality. What they do to day in and day out to become world champions, and then you start liking them. And you start becoming a fan, and obviously nobody beats Father Time. So that day is coming. We've seen the Alis where they get torn apart as they age. And I think this Ugas fight was the best case scenario in a sense where he lost the fight, but he wasn't destroyed. He wasn't, seriously hurt. It didn't tug at your heartstrings where you're like, fuck, he's done. Like, he just lost. He just got beat. He got beat by the younger, fresher man. His faculties is still all intact. You still wonder, like, he probably still has a few fights, but you're kind of glad that he decided to retire because he's done it all. He's done more than enough. You don't want to see Manny Pacquiao get hurt, and he didn't take that Spence fight, so you're kind of relieved in a sense. But to me, I'm just glad that he decided to take this time to retire, to focus on other things. Well, he'll always be, I feel like, involved in boxing somehow, some way, whether as a promoter, whether coming to the fight. He'll always be there. I'm just kind of glad he's finally deciding to call it a day. It was a little unexpected because I see Manny Pacquiao back. Manny Pacquiao is going to want to fight till he's 60. So I'm kind of glad that he decided to take the step and then call it a career. Will we see him in exhibition fights? Maybe. Will we see him in fundraiser fights? Maybe. But as long as it's no longer where he puts his health seriously on the line against another top boxer, one that can seriously hurt him, I think we should all just be happy with that we had him for 15, 20 plus years.
Yeah, and just a couple more questions before we get out of here. Mad Dog, if you're in attendance, there's the email. So you can hit me up or DM us on Instagram. One of the last few questions is, you guys can start thinking about it. Best thing from boxing in 2021 and the worst thing from boxing in 2021. A year when we saw Manny Pacquiao retire, we saw a few undisputed champions Um, things like Berlanga's KO streak ending, many upsets. Lara
Mm.
Warrington, Kiko Martinez against Kid Galahad, Sandor Martin against Mikey Garcia, Cambosos versus Lopez. Many
Mhm.
memorable KOs, memorable fights.
Yeah.
What sticks the most as the best and the worst of this year?
I'll start. I'll start off just to get the thing going. For me, the biggest thing that's happened in boxing this year was George Kambosos winning and toppling uh, the kingpin at Teofimo Lopez. And I say this because, you know, in the beginning of the year, we thought the lightweight division was finally going to get the ball rolling. We thought the Ryan Garcias, the Tank Davises, we thought those young guys were going to teach the old heads, you know, a thing or two about fighting each other and not being afraid of losing. And obviously the year went by and we didn't get none of that. We didn't get none of that. We didn't see none of these top names fight each other. We saw them Twitter. We saw them, you know, keyboard warring. Like we saw them talking everything, but not getting in the ring together. So to me, the fact that George Kambosos, you know, upset the apple cart, finally got these guys going. They started calling him out. Guys that would have never called out Teofimo Lopez if he would have won this fight. It at least got the ball moving. It at least shook up the lightweight division. To me, that's the biggest thing that's happened in boxing this year. The George Kambosos win over Teofimo Lopez.
Worst fight of the year says Jason Bivol against Russian dude. Yeah, he has a thing against Bivol. But yeah, Clyde, you want to take this next one? Best and worst of 2021?
Okay, so best, definitely Canelo. Just furthering his legacy, putting that stamp on it for the GOAT now.
And let me add this because Clyde and I think we've had that conversation of, oh, Canelo probably surpassed Chavez, right? And I remember at first Clyde was like, no way. He was one of the ones who was very against that that take, right? But things have kind of turned a little bit. So just to kind of put that into perspective, Clyde was, you know, he wasn't the biggest fan of Canelo, you can say. So I think that opinion about Canelo's kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, there's no more argument from me. I can't think of an argument to say that he isn't the GOAT Mexican. So and I think he just amended that with continuing to fight top competition and going up in weight, always being the smaller man, and now going all the way to cruiser, the fight. As for the bad thing about boxing, I mean, I don't know if I could really say it's too bad, but I would have to go with God, well, I forgot the Paul name. Logan, Jake, one of those Pauls, the brother that slept the MMA guy. I don't even know the MMA guy's name. But just putting a big stamp on MMA guys trying to come into the ring for a payday and they get put to sleep by a YouTuber. All right. So Gio, it's like you, hey, go fight an MMA guy and you put him to sleep. Essentially, that's what's happening. And that happened on like a world stage in the mainstream. And it's kind of bad, as in it gives us a bad name, boxing, showing that, you know, this guy is beating all these like MMA dudes and all these guys and not fighting an actual fighter, an actual boxer.
And getting
So
paid
it's
a
kind
lot
of
of money
like bad
too.
because, you know, a lot of people are criticizing that and making these arguments that he should fight a boxer. He should fight a boxer. He's not a boxer. He's a YouTuber. So that's kind of bad, but also, I don't know, it kind of cuts both ways because it put boxing in the mainstream for that much longer. And a lot of people are talking about boxing and saying, oh, who should he fight? Then they start talking about actual boxers, and maybe they'll look
Chavez
into these
Jr.,
actual
stay away.
boxers and
Stay
their
away, Chavez
fights and
Jr.
so on.
Chavez Jr., stay away from Paul, man. Sean?
To me, I think the best thing this year is sort of the number of modern undisputed champions we've produced seems to indicate that boxing's moving in the right direction. You know, people are beginning to fight each other and make the big fights. Even people who we haven't seen in the past, like we've been asking for people like Terrence Crawford to make big fights, for year after year, that's been on my wish list. So seeing him take a step in the right direction and fight a Sean Porter, and then also basically be in a position to take different fights next year. Things like Alexander Usyk winning unified heavyweight championship is good for boxing for a few reasons. I think one is because it's unexpected, and it can't just always be the person you think is going to wins. That would be boring. Sometimes there has to be a little wrench in there, like a la Cambosis and stuff like that. So I actually think those things are good for boxing. But also because I also know that Usyk will not be denied. If he retains those belts in this next fight, we will end up with an undisputed heavyweight champion, a 4-belt undisputed heavyweight champion. Because I think one thing is clear is that when the fighter, your Lomachenkos, your Alexander Usyks, your Tyson Furies, when they want to make that happen, it will happen, right? We always talk about boundaries and things like that, like, oh, we can't make this work between fights. But, Lomachenko always made it work. Usyk is going to make it work. So I think like Cambosis is, the guy is in a position right now that he's not promoted by any of the big promoters. He's managed by Ludabilla, right? He could fight anybody, right? So when he posts out things and says, who do you think I should fight? He can actually make that happen, right? So like, I think that the number of undisputed champions and just the types of fights and the people who are winning right now put boxing in a really good position to make the fights that we all have been asking for a long time. That's probably the best thing to come out of this year.
Anything as the worst, or you want to stay positive?
I always like staying positive when it comes to boxing. I don't want to. I will say, just as a boxing fan, I'm going to tell you something that drives me nuts. Are you guys on ESPN Plus at all?
Yes.
Man, I hate having to change the stream like 4 times to watch one fight card. Do you guys experience that? I mean, come on.
Hey.
You have to like go from ESPN Plus, and then you have to change the stream to the main card. And then if you want to watch the after show and the interview, you have to go back to the other one.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's the worst, man.
It's the worst, man.
ESPN Plus pay-per-view, the idea that you have to have the subscription and then also have to pay the pay-per-view fee, and only if you have both can you watch a fight. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So just make it ESPN pay-per-view or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I love ESPN's production quality and stuff like that. I don't have, but I will say as a boxing fan, that exasperates me every time I have to deal with it.
Yeah, more often than not, I find myself not noticing that the event has ended, quote unquote.
Right.
I go get a drink, I do stuff on my computer, and next thing you know, I'm like, I haven't heard my TV make a noise for the past 15 minutes. I'm like, I turn and the event has ended. I'm like, oh man, I gotta go find it now on some other channel or streaming platform.
Yeah, like as someone who subscribes to all of it and buys all the pay-per-views and stuff like that, it would be really awesome if I could just get one stream. Just let me stream the whole thing. I paid for it all. I have the subscription. Just let me. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah,
since you were talking about the low lights of boxing, let me ask our guests, which has been the biggest disappointment of these 3 things? So what has been the biggest disappointment for 2021 for our guests? Is it A, Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua not happening? B, is it Errol Spence not fighting Terrence Crawford? Or is it C, none of the lightweight world champions facing each other this year? So Clyde, you want to answer this one? What has been the biggest disappointment of 2021 of those 3?
Wow. I don't really see them as too big of a disappointment, though. I wish it would have seen Wilder versus Joshua. I feel like that would have been great to see. I mean, they both. Yeah, I think that would have been great to see because it would have been really big here, mainstream in America.
Biggest money fight in heavyweight history.
Yeah, that would have been huge. Yeah, I think that was definitely a missed opportunity.
Thank you, Wilder.
Thank you, Wilder. All right, Sean, those 3, what was the biggest disappointment that did not happen in 2021?
Okay, so the first one, A, was what? Wilder Joshua? Is that what you said?
Yes, Wilder Joshua. B, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, or C, none of the lightweight big names fighting each other this year.
I think A is out of the running for me because what we got in its place was the one that you guys unanimously called fight of the year. So I think like it's hard to say that's the biggest disappointment. The result of what occurred gave you one of the best fights that we watched in all of 2021. So I think A is not really a disappointment, although I would have liked to have seen the fight. B was Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. I don't think that was really expected for this year, given the circumstances surrounding that fight. So one, Terrence Crawford still having top rank fights under his contract that he had to fulfill, and two, the problems that Errol Spence was experiencing. So I wouldn't say that it was, and I think that what you saw this year is a good setup for next year. And you are likely to see a fight like that. So again, a fight I would very much like to see, but not terribly disappointed. So I'm gonna have to go with C. I would like to have seen more of the lightweights compete against each other at the championship level, like at the top of the division. Especially because like you have to remember the narrative that was forming around that. It was like the new Four Kings
Disrespectful.
narrative that was like forming around this lightweight division. And I think that that, you know, given all that stuff, the fact that we didn't see a lot of the top names compete against one another, I also think that you see why, because every one of them has shown vulnerability over the past year. Like you look at those guys and you go, oh yeah, like they're all have their paths to victory for anyone in those fights.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go with C.
Yeah, I think for me that was, to me at least, one of the worst parts of 2021 for boxing, going back to the question. The fact that a lot of guys still refuse to fight each other for whatever reason. And the best thing to me was kind of what Cambosos did, you know, shake things up a little bit. And we did see a lot of champions fight each other. We saw a lot of unifications, fights for the undisputed championship. So I think that was the good thing about boxing. That's something that perhaps we hadn't seen in the past few years, at least the post Mayweather era, where a lot of the champions were staying away from each other. You know, we saw 68, we saw the heavyweights getting in there with each other. We saw 140, you know, two guys fight for all the belts. So I think that was the best part of the year for me, at least. But yeah, Chris, I don't know if you wanted to answer your own question.
Yeah, no, for me, I guess the biggest disappointment was, I know Sean kind of answered that it wasn't likely to happen. But for me, it was Errol Spence not fighting Terrence Crawford, just because I tweeted about this December last year. I was like, my one wish for 2021 was for Errol Spence to finally fight Terrence Crawford. Most likely, I said like late 2021. I was like, there's going to be a bunch of politics and yada, yada, yada. But I was like, that's my one wish for 2021. This year, December, I tweeted like, that's what I want. And we're in December of the following year and still no fight. But Sean did mention, you know, Terrence Crawford finally got the ball rolling, fought a top 5 welterweight. Hopefully this sets up, you know, for next year. Am I gonna sit and wait and see if it happens? I've already been like, you know what, if it happens, it happens. I'm not gonna sit around and expect it to happen. You know, keep your expectations low so it can happen. But for me, that's it. Errol Spence not fighting Terrence Crawford. Hopefully, finally it happens in 2022. The things are there in place for it to happen.
Okay, do you think if Spence never had that accident, he would have fought Bud by now?
I think so. I think it would have happened by now. I think it would have happened either this year. I think it would have happened this year. Obviously, the accident happens. Things, obviously, in boxing, you have at most maybe 2-3 fights a year. That just tells you like it's probably going to happen next year. But yeah, if that accident doesn't happen, I think it happens already.
Yeah,
and
I
like
agree.
Big
I
Bro
think Spence
says-
would already knocked them out by now. So that's what I think.
And
Oh,
I
wait,
agree
wait,
with Big Bro.
since we're all in the room,
I
how
agree
many
with
people
Big
do we
Bro.
have Team Spence in this room?
Team Spence.
Yeah.
I'm over
Yeah,
this fight, so I'm not even voting.
Well,
I lost faith in this.
You're saying who would, like, between Crawford and Spence?
Yes.
Who? Okay. Well, yeah, I think Spence would mess him
Sean?
up.
Crawford, bro.
What do you mean by team? I'm not really team either of them. As much as Gio liked to talk about the posters on my wall, as you can see, my bedroom walls are blank.
Show the other
so
side.
I don't have any posters on my wall. If you're asking me who do I think would win in that fight, I would give the advantage to Terrence Crawford. Yeah.
That's the first time Sean has agreed with me on anything tonight. All right.
Okay. Do you guys think this fight happens next year? Yes or no?
Oh my God, here we go, man. Why are we spending so much time on these dudes, man? They haven't fought yet. Let's talk about the dudes who have fought.
That's right. Let's go.
Man.
I'm just answering the questions that are asked of me on the program, so
You can say next.
I leave it to the host to steer the conversation, and I just try to get in where I fit in, like Too Short.
I'm surprised Chris didn't ask you about Isaac Cruz. He's been having a crush on him for the past 3 weeks, I think. But yeah, let's go to some comments here before we get out of here. Max says, "Sorry, Chris, but you will forever be disappointed." If you're talking about the Crawford Spence fight. No, Spence would have fought Pacquiao and then Ugas. Yeah, it looked like that's a path he was going to take to earn those belts. Spence first wanted Crawford to get a belt at 47, and then this was way before the accident. What else we got here? Stop with the hypotheticals, Chris. And Max says he prefers to go play with his horses. So
Damn.
I feel like a lot of
they're dodging on both ends. Both ends.
Yeah. Anything else that we want to add as far as 2021 and the awards? I think we covered most of it, right? Oh, yeah. One last question I did want to ask you guys is prospects for 2022. Who are some guys that we should be looking out for? Whose year is it going to be, 2022, as far as the younger guys? And I'll just give a few examples. And, of course, I'm going to be biased. Guys like Raymond Murataya, undefeated, fights on Top Rank. He is 13-0, 11 KOs. We mentioned Diego Pacheco, 13-0, 10 KOs. And I'm going to add Joey Spencer. I think he's an interesting name. He's been on a lot of the undercards there for PBC. I think he's a very interesting fighter. He showed a lot of power, 10 KOs and 14 wins. So do you guys have any fighters we should be looking out for in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, some of the young cats I mentioned earlier who I enjoy watching. You mentioned Diego Pacheco and Joey Spencer. Also, Mark Castro.
Oh, yeah.
And Brandon Lee. Those are guys who I always enjoy watching too.
Definitely. Castro and Lee.
Clyde?
I'm not too sure. I'm not too familiar with the smaller with
Crawford? Should we look out for Crawford? No?
And Big Bro is right. Keyshawn Davis too, silver medalist.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, for me it would be the lightweight Camarón. I think there's a lot of people that know his name. He's like under the radar. He's that name that a lot of the lightweights don't want to get in or don't want to mention, don't want to, put out there because he's, light reward, high risk type of fighter. So I would say keep an eye out for him. He's
one
of those guys that.
Can you repeat it? I thought I heard Isaac Cruz.
Nah.
Wait, what was it? What was it?
El Camarón.
El Camarón.
He's a lightweight. I'm sorry, his name skips my mind right now, but he's one of those guys that he's under the Golden Boy banner. Nobody really wants to fight him. You could easily make that fight between him and Ryan Garcia, but because it's such a low reward, high risk, not a lot of the lightweights are saying his name. But
let me add another one because you guys probably know his full name, but I I think I know his last name. Hopefully, I don't mess it up. But El Rayo, right? Valenzuela is it? Am I saying that right?
That's another one. That's another one.
Um,
That's another one like
David
that. You know,
Benavidez,
he's had
stablemate.
run-ins with Teofimo Lopez. That's another lightweight prospect that nobody is gonna try to mention nowadays just because he's got them hurt bonds. But yeah, there's names there that people don't want to mention because they're more dangerous than what the public know, and so they won't try to.
William Cepeda.
You know,
Does that sound about right? I know.
there you go. There you go.
I
William
think
Cepeda.
Jason mentioned him early on the show, and Big Bro says too, Camarón Cepeda. So that's someone to look out for, definitely. Did we want to mention? And I know I'm not the right person to bring up this topic because I've mentioned in the past I don't watch too much women's boxing, not on purpose, but I'm not too well informed. Do you guys want to mention women's boxing? I don't want to disrespect them.
Yeah, I mean, Michaela Mayer had an excellent fight earlier this year. There was some questionable judging, but very, very good fight.
Yeah. You know, for me, Katie Taylor, Michaela Mayer, they impressed me this year. Michaela Mayer, she was going up against a very tough opponent, lots of knockouts, smaller than her in frame, but that was going to be a big test. And for me, Michaela Mayer kind of like just showed out that she has some boxing skills. She can bring away. She can box. She's not just a face. She can do it. So that impressed me from her. Amanda Serrano has been fighting under the Jake Paul events, so I know a lot of people don't want to associate with him or don't want to put their name, but that only helps her brand. To me, women's boxing, I know there's been that debate between 2-minute, 3-minute rounds. I think with more time they could show off their skills a little bit more. But it's been a good year for boxing. For me, Katie Taylor has shown someone that can do it all. Box, be a media darling, and get good interviews, show off like not just their personality but their skills. So it's been a good year for boxing. We'll see what the ladies have for 2022.
Alexis, you think Amanda Serrano is boring, my guy? What's the matter with you? Have you watched her fight? What are you talking about?
Hey, we got an undercard for me against Chris, Sean against Big Bro. This is how the beef starts.
Wait, hold up. I got demoted to the undercard? When did that happen?
You've been dugging me,
Just
Sean.
because Christian told you I'm 154? Because that's nonsense. I'm not that big.
Yo, he added like 20 pounds to you. That's disrespectful.
Yeah, bro. Come on.
Maybe I get winner, Sean against Chris.
Oh, Alexis said he doesn't watch Amanda Serrano. You got to watch Amanda Serrano, bro. I'll tell you what. Amanda Serrano is supposed to be finalizing a deal to fight Katie Taylor in April of next year at Madison Square Garden. That's like what Eddie Hearn had put out there on that. If that fight happens, it's hard to imagine where we'll be in the world and travel and things like that. But that's a fight I would actually go to.
Nice.
Meaning I would go to New York to watch that fight.
Nice.
That's what's up.
So Jill, have we covered all the awards?
Yes, I don't know if you wanted to add any.
So we had fun with the main awards that we talk about. Let's have a little fun with it. Let's do some non-favorable awards. If you guys want to just play with this one. I've always said in boxing, it's like it's the fighters that fight, and then sometimes it happens where fighters don't fight enough. I'm just gonna put this award out there. You guys just chime off a little bit. I'm gonna award this next award. This is the Gary Russell Award. This is for a fighter that hasn't fought enough for whatever reason. It's the Gary Russell Award. Not enough fights, not enough work being done, some inactivity. Just at the top of your minds, like at the top of your heads, who would you guys award this award to?
Well, I'm sure you forgot that he's still active, but Gary Russell.
He's fighting.
Yeah, he hasn't fought since he lost to Loma, right?
He's the winner.
Yeah, but how about a fighter that hasn't fought enough, hasn't been active enough? If he would have fought one or twice this year, he would have made some noise. So who do you guys award this Gary Russell award to? Maybe a fighter that you feel like, oh, he's still fighting, or he was inactive, he didn't fight enough.
Besides Gary Russell, you're saying?
Yes, besides Gary Russell. Who would you award it to?
Mikey
And I'll give the
Garcia.
floor to Sean or to Clyde, whoever wants to answer this fight or this award. Sean?
Mikey
I mean,
Garcia.
it's hard for me to say. It depends on why these guys are inactive, but like Mikey stands out a little bit as someone who could be doing more in his career if he's interested in doing that. You know, and I assume that he's not because it's not of his interest right now.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Keith Thurman.
he fought, he lost this year, and before that, it was like a year.
Should have been the Keith Thurman award.
Right.
So, oh God, yeah, I feel bad. Yeah, I had such good hope for him.
Okay, so you would give it to Mikey. Clyde, you would give it to who?
Yeah, probably Mikey as well. I can't think of many off the top of my head.
Okay.
I mean, I guess that's probably the reason why we can't think of many, because they're forgotten, right? They're like the forgotten ones.
Keith.
Okay.
Keith Thurman, who's fighting soon.
Keith was injured.
Oh, he's already gonna fight.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Gio, I'll let you talk about Keith. You would give Keith the Gary Russell Award for inactivity. Tell me why.
No, I was going Mikey, but I think Keith is a name too who hasn't been active. We haven't seen him since the Pacquiao fight, and I would like to see him fight. I'm intrigued with this Barrios fight. I'm not paying for it. I think it's pay-per-view, but I'll probably watch it somehow, maybe on YouTube the next day. But I think he should be more active. But definitely Mikey Garcia, man. I think it showed last fight, losing to a guy who perhaps shouldn't have lost to.
Is that your upset of the year, Christian, that you mentioned earlier?
The Mikey Garcia versus Sandor?
Yeah.
That's definitely up there. Definitely up there. That's definitely up there. It's funny that you say this Gary Russell award to Keith because he goes from inactivity to pay-per-view. It's like, bro, how the fuck you go from one end to this? You're trying to take money out of my pocket, and you're active.
The pay-per-view bar is subtly dropping in 2020. You guys, there's a few fights that I think aren't typical pay-per-views that now are, and we'll probably see more like that.
Are you?
I call those the bootleg worthy ones.
Yeah,
that's what those are.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Are you purchasing?
Allegedly, I don't condone any of that.
Sean, are you purchasing Ortiz against? Oh my God, what's his name?
Martin.
Martin.
Prince Charles Martin.
Yeah.
Am I buying it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What? Come on,
Of course, bro.
I mean, it's cheap, but just the fact that they're charging for that.
Hey, look, let me educate you a little bit. So I routinely pay between $60 and $80, okay, to go watch dudes fight 4 rounds against opponents who don't have winning records, who are basically just there to lose. Like paying $60, I used to pay to watch Prince Charles Martin fight at All-Star Boxing Cards, and I would pay just as much when he was fighting 4-rounders against guys who weren't Luis Ortiz. So why is it a big deal if I pay to watch him on pay-per-view I pay multiple times, 10 times a year. I buy fight tickets for $60 and $80 that don't feature guys like Prince Charles Martin.
True. But you got some world-class commentating team there, bro. You got to work. Come on.
I don't hear those guys because I'm actually at the event. So I get to skip all of your world-class commentary.
Those guys bring you in for the 3rd and 4th fight, and they make the experience.
Plus, I should mention that on this pay-per-view card, I think my broadcast partner, thanks to you guys, Gerald Washington, will also be.
That's right.
Will also be participating. My former broadcast partner on All-Star Boxing.
2 legends right there. 2 legends.
Yeah. No, so it's funny. I bring this Gary Russell award for inactivity, and I see some of the comments. I was thinking of the guy that our fight fans are mentioning. I would award this to Ryan Garcia. Yes, he had that fight in the beginning of the year, but this is one of the most marketable, one of the most talented, fighters in the fight game. Just the fact that he didn't fight enough.
He got hurt, dude.
You talk the talk, but you don't back it up. You don't at least get in the ring and mix it up with at least the top 20 guy. Like,
He got hurt.
I'm sure you have outside distractions or whatever you're dealing with, but you have to back it up. You have to stay active. If you don't stay active, you get the Gary Russell Award. So to me, and I'm going off the comments, I would give it to Ryan Garcia. Just did not do enough this year, in my opinion.
Hold up, let me crush Alexis real quick, who's hating on me for saying I would buy this pay-per-view. My guy, so the one pay-per-view I didn't get was the last one because we were in here and you were guilt-tripping me about, the only way to hurt them is to hit their pockets. And guess what? That turned out to be a good fight.
Which one was that one?
The Tank Davis.
Oh.
That was a good fight. Yeah.
That turned out to be a good fight. Everybody, I'll give you an example. Everybody was hating on me when I bought the pay-per-view in the chat for Andy Ruiz. That was and Chris Arreola. That was better than half the pay-per-views I've purchased. Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola. There's all kinds of pay-per-views that are worse than that one.
Yeah.
Get out of here, man.
Get out of here, man. Clyde, what is the last pay-per-view you paid for?
Man, you're gonna put me on the spot like that?
Come on, man. Come on.
I just want to say I do love boxing. I do love boxing, so don't take it to don't hurt me too much for this. But it was right before COVID, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember who it was. It's been a while, but I'll put it this way: I've watched like 90% of the fights live. But yeah, I'll just put it that way.
In other words, he'll find a way to support boxing and watch his fights. But
yes.
That's not supporting boxing, my guy. Just
and
be clear.
Okay, and the way Sean puts it,
watch these fights.
The way Sean puts it makes me feel bad. Like, damn, I really want to support it too, but I also want to use my speak with my money and let them know, hey, I don't condone subpar matchups. Yeah. And just because some might turn out well, I think, still that's not enough for me to give them my money. Because I mean, I don't really enjoy the top rank stuff, and
Let me pose this question. What is the last pay-per-view that you remember buying that you're like, fuck, I can't believe I paid for that? All right, I'll start.
To get you caught up, man.
The last pay-per-view that I bought that I was like, I can't believe I paid for that. And I know Gio and his brother knows this answer. The last pay-per-view that I paid for that I was like, man, they just done stole my money. It was Floyd Mayweather versus Robert the Ghost Guerrero. That's one of those fights where I was like, I want to watch it. Nobody's getting together to watch it. No one's excited about it. Fuck it. I'm just going to buy it myself and enjoy it. I'm like, why did I pay for this? It was Floyd Mayweather versus Robert Guerrero. That's the last pay-per-view that I bought that I was like, man, take my money. Get my hard-earned money. So go Clyde, Sean, what's the last pay-per-view fight that you regret buying? It's all four fights.
Well, Clyde doesn't buy the pay-per-view, so he can't answer this question.
Smart man.
I don't really know. I can't think of a pay-per-view where I found like every moment of it disappointing. It doesn't really take great fighters to make great fights. It just takes evenly matched fighters. Sometimes undercards are worth it. Sometimes they're the best fight of the night, so like I can't think of a pay-per-view card where I've sat there and said like, man, I regret this decision.
Okay. Gio, not to put you on the spot, bro, but what's the last one you're like, I learned from this fight? F that.
I don't remember. I only pay for a few fights a year, so I'll make sure I pay for the good ones.
All right. With that question said, let's move on to the next segment. What are some?
All right, last one, Chris. Last one before we get out of here.
Yeah. What are some fights on the horizon that that are being made that you're looking forward to watching? whether it's Errol Spence Jr. versus Ugas, whether it's a rematch between Usyk and Anthony Joshua, some other fights that they're on paper that you're looking forward to watching, some realistic fights. I'll start with Clyde, Comix Vet.
Well, first, let me say, I think it was the Keith Pacquiao fight was the last one I bought. I think.
Okay.
All right. I think. Then that was a while ago. All right.
Okay.
As for these next, what was the question again?
So what's a very likely fight that's going to happen in 2022 that you're looking forward to? Whether it's Ugas versus Errol Spence Jr., a unification between Usyk and Joshua 2, or maybe something that's already on paper that you're like, okay, it's a guarantee. I'm looking forward to this fight.
All right. Maybe I'm being too hopeful, but maybe I'm being too hopeful, but I'm hoping that this does happen, that Canelo Benavidez or Canelo Beterbiev. I think there's a good chance.
That's a good chance. I think it's going to be more the cruiserweight, but those fights are possible. Okay. Sean, what's a fight like that's going to happen and most likely happen in 2022 that you're looking forward to?
I think if anybody who wins the Kambosos sweepstakes, if it's any of the top fighters, if it's any like the other top 4 in that division, I'm really interested to see how that plays out. It could be, that could be Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Loma in particular, like any of those cats versus Kambosos interests me.
Gio, what's the likely fight that's going to happen in 22? No fantasy stuff, no hope.
The trilogy.
What's a credible 2022 fight that you're looking forward
The
to?
trilogy, Estrada Gallo. You guys are talking about it in the comment section. You guys are talking about it, so that one's likely to happen. I think they just got to finalize the date and all that stuff, but they've been talking about it for a while.
Okay, that's what's up. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go with Sean, and I think if anybody's looking forward to fighting anybody, it's either Canelo, it's Usyk, or it's Kambosos Jr. Those guys are like guys that are just trying to make it happen, wherever, whenever. Let's just fight, and they're not afraid to fight the names. I think Kambosos, Devin Haney for me makes the most sense. These guys have gone on interviews. They're like, we're not afraid to fight in either Australia and Las Vegas. Let's just fucking make it happen. Let's just get the ball rolling. Let's just fight with wherever the fuck the chips may lay. It's gonna happen. So for me, it's Devin Haney versus Kambosos. Will it bring the most fireworks, the most excitement? Maybe not, but just the fact that these guys are willing to get in there, I'm down with that. And if it's pay-per-view, I'll support that. So Kambosos, Devin Haney, not the most fireworks, but just the fact that these are guys in the lightweight division that back up and meet and make it happen. For me, that's that fight.
Yeah, and hopefully we get a lot of big fights in 2022. And just last question before we get out of here real quickly. Let's grade 2021 as a year in boxing. Clyde, I'll let you start with this one. What do you give it? A, B, C, D?
I give it an A.
Or an F.
I think because a lot of the competition, and I always have to go back to saying
Clyde is grading on the curve.
The competition, it just wasn't there. And because of COVID, there was a lot of fights that didn't happen, but we ended up getting some fights that did happen. And even though I wish we would have had Spence and Crawford or Spence and Pacquiao, I think it was a great year. Like every couple months, there was a fight of the year candidate. There was a knockout of the year candidate. There's new up and coming fighters coming up. Now that Pacquiao's gone, we saw these younger fighters, these newer fighters that are new to the mainstream, that are able to make a name for themselves. And every couple of weeks you'll see something on ESPN with a awesome fight or an awesome knockout. So boxing was definitely in people's minds in 2021, and I give it an A because of that.
And I created a poll before we move on to Sean. I created a poll asking the same question. Most people rated it a B, which was good. You know, A, I put very good, 30%, 50% picked B, good. Some people put F, terrible. Maybe they didn't like the whole YouTuber stuff, but or maybe they're just trolling. But you guys can still vote on there if you haven't voted. So far, only 20 votes, and most people are saying A or B. So, Sean?
I'm with Clyde. I'm going to go with an A for a couple of reasons. I think, the fact that we got to actually have Olympic boxing in 2021, as carryover from 2020. Plus, we got a lot of big fights on the professional scene. Like I said, a lot of undisputed championships, some upsets, things that kind of are good for boxing. And a big part of it for me, I mentioned already, like I frequent a lot of the local club shows, and a lot of those came back this year, particularly in the second half of the year. They're not all back yet, obviously, but, had an opportunity to visit kind of smaller boxing shows locally. So I don't know if you could say, well, hey, it's just a rebound from 2020, that 2020 was so challenging that this year looks really good in comparison. But, all things considered, Olympic boxing, great professional fights, local boxing is returned. I have no complaints. I'm going to go an A.
Yeah, I agree with that. I rated an A. I was a little harsh on last year. I think I rated a C. Not necessarily boxing's fault. We did have the pandemic and a lot of people not fighting each other, a lot of fights being canceled and postponed. I think this year was very good. Champions fighting against champions. We saw a lot of big fights. We saw a lot of big names fight each other. We saw maybe the return of pay-per-view, right? A lot of big pay-per-view fights. Canelo was on pay-per-view. Fury Wilder was on pay-per-view. Big names, like I said, fighting each other. So I rated it an A. And just to kind of backtrack a little bit for the fighter of the year, I just want to mention the poll that was posted on our YouTube page. Canelo overwhelmingly 67% received 67% of the votes. Josh Taylor only 4%. George Kambosos 7%. Tyson Fury 10 and 11% Jake Paul. I don't know if they're serious or if they're trolling, but I think they agree with us that Canelo should be the fighter of the year by a landslide. But just wanted to throw that out there. But Chris, if you want to answer the
for me, this is a solid B to B plus. I think last year kind of set up this year, and this year might set up for next year. I think there was a lot of, like you guys mentioned, like good improvements from amateur Olympic boxing coming back to certain names getting in the mix, some unifications, not all the ones that we were clamoring for, not all the ones that we wanted, but I think we're in a good place now with the Terrence Crawford, Sean Porter fight finally being made. It kind of sets up for this year. This coming year, 2022, has the potential to be an A. But all these things have to come together. It has to be some of the lightweights fighting each other. Not all, but some of the big names just fighting each other finally. Getting some of the big names at heavyweight finally fighting each other. Now that Wilder's out, we can get some of the big names just getting that clarified. And Canelo's obviously going to do Canelo things. He's going to fight the next big challenge no matter what, so that's a guaranteed. But B to B plus for me this year, a great year. Especially the last couple of weeks where you saw all the some of the lightweights mixing up their names and getting it going. Kambosos shaking things up, and so I think this following year has the potential to be an A year. Obviously, we don't know yet until it happens, but B plus for me, B to B plus for me this year.
B plus for Big Bro. Let us know what you guys rated. You guys who are still here on the live chat. But yeah, I don't remember probably for a while this many big fights in one year. When you think about Estrada and Gonzalez, when you think about Fury, Wilder, Canelo, Billy Joe Saunders, Canelo Plant, even guys like Ryan Campbell. I think that was a very good start to the year. Valdez Berchelt, Jake Paul Woodley. I mean, huge fights. But yeah, hopefully 2021 can equal or be even better than 20. I don't even know what I said already, but anyway, you guys know what I mean.
To me, the biggest names in boxing is the lightweight division, the welterweight division, whatever the fuck Canelo does, and the heavyweights. So whatever those guys do, if they get it brewing, they get it going, lightweight, welterweight, Canelo division, and the heavyweight division, that's the state of boxing. So whatever all those guys do, whether they fight competitive like fights between Enik and each other, that will give you the state of boxing.
Well, I hope next year, 2022 will be the year that Canelo starts to tear into the light heavyweight division more seriously. So that's what I'm hoping for. Cruiserweight too much. I think 175 is where he's going to hopefully start tearing into.
Sean?
Yes, sir. What am I looking forward in 2022?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the heavyweights. I'm interested to see how Alexander Usyk and AJ turns out and what will come of that and who Tyson Fury's next opponent will be. I think they said today they're trying to line up either Andy Ruiz or Robert Elenius. So, I think having an undisputed heavyweight champion is really brings a much bigger spotlight to boxing.
All right, and Gio, finally, the host of AtR. What are you looking forward to in boxing for 2022?
Yeah, like I said, just anything similar to 2021, I'll take it, man. I'll take it. I think it was a very good year considering all the factors. You know, COVID's still here, still a thing. I'm glad we got to see fans back in attendance. I think that was huge. But yeah, anything similar to 2021, I'll take. But I think that's a good time to get out of here. We want to thank all you guys in the live chat for joining us, not just tonight, but for joining us all year. And we'll try to continue to do the giveaways, man. Congratulations to those who won a T-shirt. We'll try to do it more often so you guys can get a chance to win one as well. Just we want to show our appreciation for you guys joining us and supporting us one way or another, you know, throughout the year. And yeah, hopefully a better 2022. Hopefully we can bring on more guests as things kind of die down a little bit and we can start bringing more guests, maybe doing more podcasts in person and all that. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys. And of course, thank our guests here, Sean from the Just Boxing Foundation. Go check it out, justboxing.org. Correct, Sean?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Justboxing.org.
Yep. Show some support too. Are we able to make donations through the website, Sean?
Yes, you can. You can actually donate through justboxing.org. You could also donate through our Facebook page, which is Just Boxing Foundation. We're also Just Boxing Foundation on Instagram. I believe there's a donate there as well. You know, in the past 6 months, we've given away 2 scholarships, $1,200 scholarships to amateur boxers who compete and also are enrolled in colleges and universities. And we also sponsored an all-female amateur tournament here in Northern California. So those are some of the activities that some of the things that we like to do for the community in this area. So every little bit helps.
That's what's up, and we will get something together, Chris. We'll make some type of donation. We don't get paid a lot over here at AtR, but you know we'll try our best, Sean. So yeah, go check it out, man. Justboxing.org, and also
you can donate the proceeds from our big match.
Hey,
pay-per-view.
there you go.
Are we on pay-per-view, Sean?
We should be. Come on, $9.99. I literally paid like $12 to watch people arm wrestle the other day.
Bro, if Keith can get a pay-per-view, you guys can get a pay-per-view. I'll leave it at that.
Oh man. And of course, thank you, Clyde, our guy from Comix Vet. Man, good to have you finally on the show. You know, you're always showing some love there on the live chat and giving us your hot takes, sparking some debates there on the live chat. So it was good to have you on, man. And go check them out. Comix Vet on YouTube, Comix Vet on Instagram, and all that good stuff. Right, Clyde?
Yes. Stay tuned for some more content. So I promise.
Yeah, some
Clyde,
big films.
Clyde,
Yeah.
I'm
Go ahead.
gonna interrupt you. I know you're into movies and film and all that, and I love that too. But I'm just gonna interrupt and ask, how did you get into boxing, bro? How did your love for boxing grow? How did it start?
Well, you know how it is growing up Mexican, and that's basically how it goes, right? It's part of the culture.
Pretty much.
Yeah, did some amateur boxing when I was in the Army, and, continue to just have my love for boxing continue to grow. Now I come in here with the hot takes when I'm able to.
Yeah, see, this channel is monetized, but I did a podcast with Clyde. We did something over Zoom. We recorded it on my personal channel, so if y'all want to check that out, he came in hot, raw, and uncut. We had to tune it down a little bit for this channel, but if y'all want to go check that out. But
Was
yeah,
it
thank you, gentlemen.
boxing topics or comic and movie topics? I'm interested in both. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
We talked
Both are
about
dope.
It was like everything,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
everything.
It was
Everything?
boxing. It was
Clippers, Lakers,
yeah. All that
sports,
stuff.
baseball.
It was fun.
Yeah, good
So-
talk. We
Those
talked a
fun,
little
yeah.
bit about his experience in the military there too. So
That's what's up.
yeah, we'll have you guys back hopefully soon. We enjoyed it.
So Clyde, top 3 movies that I should be looking forward in 2022. Go. Top 3.
Dang, off top of my head. Dang.
Yeah.
Tune into
Let's
Comix
see.
Vet's YouTube channel for the answer.
See, Kingsman 3, The Batman, and Spider-Verse movie. Into the Spider-Verse Part 2.
All right, done.
Bang. Stay tuned.
Bang.
All right,
Bang,
that's
bang.
it, man. Thank you guys for joining us this year. Happy holidays, happy New Year, stay safe, all that good stuff. We'll be back soon, man. Hey,
Let's go.
Chris says goodbye for at least 30 minutes. I tried, Sean. I tried. All right, Chris, we'll let you take it away. Make it brief, please. 10 seconds
Not
or
for me to
less.
thanks
the
to
count.
everybody that's been part of this podcast for 2021. A great year, a great closing of the year. Can't wait to see what happens next year. We're gonna have some pressure with these guys to make some of these fights happen. But at the end of the day, thank you guys for keeping this chat lit. Thanks for the different opinions and everything that you guys do, just honoring the boxing game, because you don't play boxing, and there's a reason why we follow the sport. It's just different. It's built different.
Let's go, mates. Happy New
Let's
Year.
go.
Let's go, mates.
There was Kawhi laughing.
Thanks, guys.
Hola amigos, soy Juan Francisco Gallo Estrada. Quiero mandar un saludo para mis amigos de Contra las Cuerdas. Échenle muchas ganas. Un abrazo, muchas bendiciones.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. You know what mine is? Let's box, bitches. It's almost fight night.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you for the support. Keep doing your thing. You're doing a great job. So thank you and best wishes.
Against the ropes. Huge shout out to Against the Ropes. Against the Ropes.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you guys for the interview and hope to see you guys soon.
Against the ropes, always doing the right thing.
Shout out to Against the Ropes, man. I appreciate you guys for having me, taking the time out y'all day.
Against the Ropes, #1.
Freddie Roach.
Thank you very much.